Welcome to At Issue, the first At Issue of the new year. Thank you for joining us. I'm H. Wayne Wilson. We hope that 2009 brings you success. 2008 was a rough one, economically speaking, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. In fact, for the next 4 At Issue programs, we'll be talking about the impact of the economy on various aspects of business in Central Illinois. Today we're going to be talking about minority-owned businesses, in particular African-American-owned businesses. Then we'll be talking about how it affects a community, Pontiac. We'll be talking about how it affects the state in general with the State Chamber of Commerce. And we'll be talking about how it affects those in need and how much more impact it has on those people with the Salvation Army, Home Sweet Home Ministries in Bloomington, Southside Mission. So that's all coming up in January, but let's talk about African-American-owned businesses first and the impact that the downturn in the economy has had in particular. To do that, let's introduce you to Reverend Jim Offut. Reverend Offut is the president of the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here.
Next to him is Chuck Brown. Chuck has just started Brown Publishing. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the difficulty of starting in this kind of economy, especially for minority-owned business. Larry Ivory is with us. Larry is the president of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
And Clyde Gulley. Many of you will know Clyde as the 1st District Councilman for the City of Peoria. He will be here in that capacity, but also because he is the co-owner of Rock Solid Concrete, and we thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Let's start first with a general discussion about what is the status of minority-owned businesses in Central Illinois? Is it any better than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Is it worse, the same?
I'll start by saying they're still struggling to try to find their place in this economy. There's a lot of contracts that are available in the city of Peoria and across the state, but we find that there's only a small number of minority businesses that are really available and have prepared themselves to be participants in those projects that are available.
Is the downturn in the economy had more impact on minority-owned businesses than business in general?
Sure. Well, I would say that there's a comment that's often said that when the Caucasian community has the cold, the African American community has the flu. And when you think about, the current conditions of black businesses across the state and across the United States, we can clearly see that it's pretty challenging, especially when you talk about access to capital with banks who are, tightening, their belts and making credit a little more difficult, which is always a big problem for minority businesses, bonding, and access to capital. So I think that there's some significant challenge. I think 2009, based upon the state of the economy, is going to be a real challenge to see just what's going to happen in 2009 and how that's going to impact everybody.
Let's talk about a particular industry for right now, and that is the construction business. And I want to talk about that and we'll use the city of Peoria as the example. It could be another governmental body, but for right now, let's talk about city and its requirements. The city has a couple of different guidelines. They divide it up into minority-owned and female-owned. They separate those out. IDOT does not. IDOT combines them into one. But for the city of Peoria, for the minority-owned businesses, it's 10%. For females, it's 5%. And then keep in mind that there's a different number for the workforce, the number of employees on the job. That is 18% minority, number of workers on the job, and 3% for women. It's difficult for the city to meet that guideline, for the contractors to meet those kinds of guidelines because there aren't a lot of minorities in the unions to fill those roles.
Right. I think when we look at traditionally, it has been difficult. Let's talk about it in the way that you laid it out, the workforce and then the businesses.
Okay.
Let's talk about the workforce first. The workforce in the minority participation in the unions, of course, we know is a number less than 3%. Of course, labor is about 5.5 of men that are available to work out of a workforce of over 1,000 individuals that are in their card-carrying members in the local laborers. In the electricians, the steam fitters, the carpenters, those numbers are 3.5% or less, really on the average about 3%. So that's a small number of individuals that are really available for work when we look at the numbers that have actually went through the apprentice programs and are journeymen that are really available to work currently in Peoria. Maybe Larry wants to talk about the business side of it, but we have the same struggles. Some people think strategically the way that we actually get to having minority businesses that are union businesses is that grow them through the apprentice programs and as journeymen and have them working on the projects and they grow into contractors. Well, if the numbers are less than 3% of the numbers that are actually in the unions, it actually results in a small number of minority contractors that are available as well. But there's other challenges that go along with that.
Well, let me turn to Reverend Offut for a moment and talk about why is it that we're at such low numbers in the unions? 3% in laborers is above 5%, but 3% across the board for most of them. Why is that so?
You would almost have to conclude that it's conspiratorial. And I say that because here we are in 2009, and we're talking about the same problem that has existed for almost forever. And we don't have any substantial, appreciable increase in the participation of African Americans in the trade unions than we've had in the past. I personally feel no sympathy for the unions because they painted themselves in a corner by their practices of excluding African Americans.
Is there something that the Black Chamber can do or that African Americans can do in general to try to change that low number?
Well, I think we're forced to try to do something about it, because obviously when you take a look at the next economic stimulus package that's going to be coming forward with the president-elect, there's going to be a lot of infrastructure in it. And the things that we can begin to do is really begin to, because if you take a look from a political side, there's a lot of African Americans who vote democratically and the Democratic Party. And when you take a look at that, you can see that, obviously there's a great sense of relationship there. And I think we're going to have to challenge the political parties as well as the unions and ask for greater access and maybe even ask for, creating our own unions, our own trades or something. But we can't go on, because if we continue to do what we've been doing, we can continue to get what we've been getting. And I don't think that's been real positive or long term.
Let me ask Chuck about, you've just started a publishing company, Brown Publishing. It's religious oriented. You have a couple of publications you're going to put out, and you depend on advertising. Did anyone say to you that the economy took a downturn? This is a bad time to be doing that?
Well, I guess the principle I go by is, because we're a Christian-based publication, there's that scripture, we're in this world, but we're not of this world. Basically meaning I have to approach my business the same way I approach my life, more optimistic. I feel like when we get out there and compete, obviously we are a minority business, but we are first and foremost a Christian business, but we're also a business in general. So we have to go out and we have to knock on doors. We have to build value in the publication. We have to show the businesses that will be advertising the value of placing an ad with these publications, being two of them. One is called the Church Program, and the other one is called Success Ministry. So it's hard to say at this point what kind of impact, but I think this is the best time to start, because if we can make it in this climate, then we ought to be able to be successful in any climate.
Now, you're not new in owning a business.
No.
You ran a cleaning business for about 7 years.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges that that may have been a little bit different because you were a minority-owned business?
Well, when it comes to expansion and trying to get into a larger market, I mean, fortunately for us, we were in the residential side of the cleaning business, so we did not have to go out and compete for large commercial projects and large contracts. But when it came down to like post-construction cleaning, things of that nature, once again, that was impacted by the union. And so, it was kind of one of those things where if you don't know how to get in and bid on projects or know the person that you can talk to, it did impact our business. So, but otherwise, if you're bidding in commercial, you really have to be poised. If the city gets a big $3 million project, for example, what happens if you're used to $3,000 projects and all of a sudden they say, well, in order to participate, you got to be prepared to receive this. Well, most minority businesses, you're either a ma and pa, you're small, you don't have the equipment, you don't have the experience, so you're kind of like shot dead before you even get started. So that's what.
Is that what you sense in your involvement with the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce? Is that what you sense, is that it's minority-owned businesses are small and it's hard for them to grow because they can't get to that next level?
True. And that's why we exist. Hopefully we can do together what we're not able to do individually. So we try to get participation by the African American businesses in this community so that collectively we can have a greater impact on the economic development of the black community.
What are some of those programs that might help out, Larry?
Well, the chambers have a number of standing committees. They have a banking and finance committee, which primary objective is to meet with local lenders and meet with people at top management and tell their story and make sure that when they walk into that business, that they're walking in with chamber people who are supporting that particular business. That gives them a greater chance of getting that particular loan. And we kind of do some dress rehearsal. So when the person gets ready to go to the bank, we've already had someone on the other side of the table acting as a banker, asking the tough questions and making sure they can respond to it. You also have construction committees out there that's focused on making sure that when there's construction projects, that we can call Councilman Gulley and others and say, we need to make sure there's adequate minority participation and to make sure that people are sensitive to that. Then you have other committees like Procurement Committee, which primary focus is to meet with the Caterpillars, the businesses, corporate businesses out there and make sure that they know your constituency and their capacity. And it's our job to make sure that we understand what's in our own backyard so that we can be effective advocate on behalf of those businesses to corporations, whether it be energy companies like Emeren or ComEd or any of those companies, to make sure that since we're buying energy and we're using energy, that we ought to have a right to participate where we help create the opportunity. And that's a philosophy that we share, because one of the things we know about the American economy and how it works is that taxpayers pay their money, it goes to Washington, then it comes back into the communities. And we think that we have a right to participate where our dollars help create the opportunity. So it's our job to really try to get people motivated, excited, and to see people like Chuck Brown and people like Councilman Gulley and people like Reverend Offut and inspire young minds and young people to dream and to go out and be successful at business.
The city has a program called Community Construction Outreach.
Right, they partner with that program. Some time ago, the city was looking at this CSO project. That was, I guess, estimates are $200 million that is supposed to be spent in the city of Peoria. That will be a huge project. When we look at the number of minority businesses that currently exist and try to figure out how are we going to have it where 10% of that goes to minority business, 18.4 is a workforce, without getting out in front of that and trying to put some things in place, we would be unsuccessful. So the city allocated some funds to actually help build capacity. And they worked with a number of organizations around the city of Peoria to help accomplish that. And now I think we're in our second year of actually trying to get things ready. So when the CSO projects come forward, we can actually have contractors that are ready, willing, and able to participate.
For the audience's benefit, CSO is Combined Sewer Overflow Project. It's an EPA-required change in how the city will
Right.
take combined sewers, and they're going to put some tunnels underground and hold water to be treated later.
Right.
But that's
Can't
another,
do it like they used to do it, right?
another topic for another
There's
show.
another topic, right?
Let's talk about some other solutions. Those are things that you can do yourselves. But
Right.
what about? Let's look at the federal and state level. The federal government, the new administration, has indicated they're going to have a huge stimulus package, economic stimulus package. Yet the state of Illinois can't put together a capital program.
Right.
How are you going to make sure that the minority-owned businesses and minority workers benefit from the federal program, and if there's ever a state program?
Well, I'll jump in first while they're thinking of some of the other things that they're going to do. It's interesting, I sit here today as Clyde Gulley, Councilman Clyde Gulley, co-owner of Rock Solid Concrete. I think as councilman, I also sit on the Fair Housing Equal Employment Committee. What we have done is try to bring together, and Larry can speak to this as well, how we're trying to work with the county, the Park District, the city, to really look at how we do business and look at how do we count goals, how do we make sure that there's not pass-throughs, how do we set the things up as far as the contract language so that it's an environment to suggest that minority contractors are used and that they're utilized on those. Those things are in place. We haven't talked about them a lot, but they are in place and they're helping to bring awareness to the contractors as far as the process that they have to go through to participate. So that's one thing that has been done to look at how we accomplish that. But those same things are being done with DBE subs and with how we notify the contractors of opportunities and how the contractors that are actually low bid understand the importance of participation within the community. So those are some tools that are in place now, and we continue to talk about them and implement them, and we are hoping that those are going to be fruitful for the community as a whole.
Well, the other side is that, we're a part, the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce and the rest of our affiliate chambers throughout the state are tied to the National Black Chamber of Commerce, who's a part of the transition team with the administration on business. And so we have some very strong advocates on Capitol Hill to make sure that every time there's a economic stimulus package or something that the last economic, when we bailed out the banks, our organization was there making sure that minority business had an opportunity to participate. So I think that through our national organization, we're going to always be represented on Capitol Hill to make sure that some of that economic blood flow to the state of Illinois. But obviously, there's a lot of good things because the president-elect is from Illinois, and with the confirmation, hopefully, of Congressman LaHood as the Secretary of Transportation, I think that holds well for all of us in the Peoria and throughout the state of Illinois.
But is there the possibility, Reverend, that everyone's hurting right now, or nearly everybody, and $800 billion is going to be put out there in infrastructure improvements in the rush that everybody wants a piece of the pie? Right. Is it possible that the black community could be left behind?
Yes.
Even with the black president?
Based upon history, that they could be left behind. And my concern is, how do you change the landscape? If it's just simply a maintenance of the status quo, there's going to be a lot of upset people in this country. And I don't see any indication on the part of unions, the cities and so forth, that things are going to change. And how to affect that change is the question that's uppermost in my mind. I know that when we went through the highway construction reconfiguration of 74 here, I think the word that came through to IDOT from us was that it wasn't going to be business as usual. And somehow that same message has to get across to the people today. And I think in order for it to impact all of the powers that be, so that that change is guaranteed, it needs to come from the top. And I don't know how that's going to be communicated, but brother, you can believe that folk aren't going to be sitting around twiddling their thumbs, pitying themselves that they're counted out. They're going to count themselves in one way or another.
Is part of the problem that there are different standards across the board? I mean, if you look at the city of Peoria, it has different standards from other communities. The District 150 has different standards, and maybe the PHA, et cetera, so that businesses, when these small minority-owned businesses, their expertise is electrical, for instance. They're not good at paperwork. They're not good at, I don't know what your guidelines are. Sometimes they get
I think it gets intimidating for some of the contractors. We have contractors locally that are very good at what they do, but when you get into like a city contract, really federal contracts like the even with the schools and some of the other things at the airport, you have certified payrolls and different requirements with workman's comp. You have the unions and the fringe benefits and the pension funds, and it grows into something that is at a different level. At the same time, we would hope that the chamber and the other organizations that are in place can help build capacity in the contractors so that we can participate at those levels. But I think specifically what you were talking about is how you get invited to.
How do you keep track of all this?
Yeah, how you get invited to.
You get into the city of Peoria. How do you get into anybody else?
You were talking a moment ago, I was saying CCO. Everybody, your audience don't know what that is, but do they know what a DBE is, a MBE, a WBE, a SBE, and a BEP, and all those different qualifications? And I didn't just rattle off letters. Those are actual certifications processes that we have in the city of Peoria today. You can be a Section 3 business. You can get an 8A certification. You can get a BEP and a MBE. So as a business, we're saying we just want to participate in these opportunities. But they say, well, you're not a DBE company, but you have to go to different places currently to actually achieve those certifications, and it becomes a hurdle. I think what we have been advocating for is a unified certification process so that there's one certification that covers them all. I think that's one step that would help us to alleviate the maze as it exists in trying to move forward. Today, I received a call that many of the minority contractors that are on the list didn't even know that there was a Glen Oak School project out for bid. Now, we've talked about that it was coming, but here are contractors that are capable of doing the work that don't know the opportunity exists. So why is that in Peoria that happens? And that's a problem that we have to learn to deal with so that we can be at the table and participate in the opportunity.
Chuck, you've been shaking your head in agreement with Clyde. Is obviously you agree, but from you're a very small business, you're brand new, although you've had a previous business. Is it difficult to even know that there's work out there, especially for minority-owned business?
Yes, when you get into a larger company, obviously you have more of a team approach. You have people out there doing sales. You have people doing your marketing. From a small business standpoint, you're really limited and restricted to what you can and can't do. It does boil down to awareness, what's going on, and then when he mentioned all the different qualifications that you go to the city, it's one type of certification. You want to bid on a project with the major utility, it's something entirely different. I think what would help, because I guess I'm a solutionist, is there needs to be a lot more awareness. If they talk about an economic stimulus package, why not? You can give me $500 and I'm going to be fine for a couple of days or a couple of bills. But if you teach me how to consistently earn that $500, now that's stimulus.
And there's the challenge for the Black Chamber of Commerce. And we'll have to leave that for another conversation because we're out of time. Let me say thank you to Reverend Jim Offut,
Thank you.
who is president of the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce, to Chuck Brown
Thank
of
you.
Brown Publishing, a brand new business in Peoria. Larry Ivory is the president of the State Black Chamber of Commerce, and Clyde Gulley, First District Councilman and co-owner with your wife
Yes.
of Rock Solid Concrete.
Yes.
Thank you all for being on At Issue. Next week, we'll take a look at the economy again, as we will for the next 3 weeks, as we look at what happens to the needy when times turn tough. Thanks for being with us on At Issue.